Port, the absolute decadent darling of the wine world. I love this stuff. Now, it might have a historic association of jolly public schoolboys and military naval officers in dusty rooms of St James's, but I'm here to tell you that port is not that. This is a wine for everyone, and if you've not had the chance to discover it yet, Christmas is a great time to do it. Now, I actually think port is a wine to be enjoyed all year round, but let's use the excuse of Christmas to have a little go at tasting some wines. I've got a selection of just some of the different styles of port that are available, and I'm really excited to taste all of these with you today. First up, we have the Coburn's Special Reserve. No, it's not pronounced as it might be spelt. This is a sort of a bridging wine, if you like. The first level of port is known as ruby port, and that is a very bright, youthful wine that's been aged for just a couple of years before release. Now, the Coburn's Special Reserve is a bit like that style of ruby port, but it has a bit more of a vintage port about it. So this is a wine that's going to be kind of bright and fun and juicy, but with maybe a little bit more class about it. So let's have a taste. And it smells delicious. You've got this lovely kind of black currant, sweet black cherry note, and it smells very delicious. And it's beautiful, really concentrated, ripe blackcurrant, lovely kind of cherry note to it too, really fresh. And the alcohol isn't too dominant on this. I mean, these are fortified wines. So that means that grape brandy has been added to it to stop the fermentation. So it keeps the natural sugars, but it adds this extra oomph. So this is coming in at 20% volume. But the great thing about a wine of this strength is it lasts for ages. So this idea that you have to open a bottle of port and drink it in one setting is absolutely nonsense. You can keep this in your fridge for up to 2 months. So I think it's great value, and especially when you're thinking about drinking moderately, a little nifter of that with a nice little sort of chocolatey dessert, delicious. This is the Quinta de Noval Late Bottled Vintage 2018 port. Quinta de Noval are an outstanding producer. Now, port is a really interesting wine because the wine is actually made upstream from the beautiful city of Porto. So if you head about an hour and a half weaving the way up the Douro Valley, you'll come across these incredible vertiginous vineyards, and they're terraced. So you have this almost kind of stair step way all of these vines all the way down to the river, and it's a remarkable landscape. The grapes are harvested by hand, and with this particular wine they actually foot tread the grapes. So they're in these big, wide, open vats, and people are there stomping the grapes with their feet to extract the juice. It's a really unique process to making port, and really only the kind of the best houses do that, and Quinta de Noval are absolutely that. The wine is made and then it's taken downstream back to the city of Porto, where it ages in these beautiful, beautiful wine houses in the neighbourhood of Nova de Gaia. If Porto hasn't been on your travel list yet, I really recommend you go and visit. Anyway, back to the wine. So this late bottled vintage, now that means that it was from one single year. Now port can often be blended, but this is one single vintage, and in this case 2018. And then it was aged in large vats, chestnut barrels are what they use here. And then it's bottled. So it's had that time to kind of mellow out. So you don't need to decant this wine. It's something you can just pull the cork on and enjoy straight away. So let's have a little taste. And it smells, oopsie daisy, it smells really good. Very excited, obviously, to taste it, aren't I? So it's got this lovely, really rich deepness to it. There's still some kind of tannic grip there, but the sugar coats your mouth really beautifully. And it's got this beautiful kind of licorice, a little bit cinnamon, really nice dark ripe fruits in there, a little wisp of cocoa and chocolate, and it's enveloping. Really quite a robust wine, but absolutely beautiful, and a great example of a very high quality late bottled vintage wine from a brilliant producer. And it actually shows how you can get very good value for money from port. That's another little hidden secret about how good port is. This next wine is something pretty special. This is a tawny port. Now what that means is that the wine has been aged in large oak barrels for a long period of time. And what happens when the wine is aged is it really loses this colour. So this is 20 years old. And for comparison, I want to show you a port that is also 20 years old, but it's spent all of its time in the bottle. So you can see that this one still retains that deep inky colour, and this one is almost translucent. It's the most wondrous colour. Tawny ports are beautiful. Now, if you are, I think they're always a great gateway port actually, because they have so much refinement and elegance about them, but they're not always as powerful and domineering as perhaps some vintage ports or late bottled vintages can be. So they're a wonderful one just to chill down a little bit and have a bottle just sat in your fridge, remembering that it can keep for quite a long time. Now, the 20-year-old port means just that. It's been aged in barrels for a minimum of 20 years and blended together and then bottled, and it's found its way to here. Graham's is an excellent label. It's made by the Symington family estates, and it's really, really great. So let's have a taste. And this smells beautiful. It's got a more lovely nutty kind of nose to it. There's this beautiful kind of candied fruit as well. Think of lovely candied orange and citrus peel. Very Christmassy indeed. And let's have a taste. And that lovely citrus note comes through, and the really deep roasted nuttiness as well. But it's also got this lovely, like a kind of a caramel sweetness to it, and a little bit of a saltiness, so maybe more like salted caramel and toffee. It's really beautiful, very fresh, actually really quite an uplifting wine, which is why this really can be a wine for all seasons. It's not just about a winter warmer. It's delicious, and I think if you find 10-year-old tawny ports, they're great to look out for. This is a really very, very special occasion wine, but it's still very good value for money for what you get. So it is an absolute treat, remembering that it keeps for a while in the fridge too. This is the Quinta de Rueda, made by Croft, who are one of the longest and oldest port producing houses. They actually developed the idea of a vintage port back in the 18th century, and this is their example of one of their flagship vineyards, the Quinta de Rueda. So this is one from one single site. All of the grapes are hand harvested, and I'm really excited to try this. So the wine comes from one single year, so in this case 2004, so we've got 20 years of age here, and it spent all of that time in bottle until I've released it today. Now it's interesting to note that this actually does have a little bit of sediment in it. It's nothing to worry about. It just means that the wine hasn't been filtered. So you could decant this and just leave it in there, and then the sediment will just fall to the bottle, or just make sure you're standing up before you serve it. So if it has been lying down anywhere, just pop it back upright like this, and then the sediment should gently fall to the bottom. Anyway, more importantly, let's see what it tastes like. So it's got this lovely, really rich, dark blackcurrant, think kind of cassis, and very, very sort of woody notes as well, a little bit earthier coming through. Wow, that is a really concentrated wine. You've got the fruit still, but then there is this other layer. It's more like dark treacle, a little bit of the nuttiness, that cinnamon spice as well, really quite unctuous and fulsome. It's a very decadent wine, and actually I think this is still really young. You could age this for even longer. The age-worthiness of port is incredible. So you could enjoy this now, or probably just, stow that away at the back of a wardrobe or under your bed for another few years and pull it out. And I think something really remarkable will happen to it. So it's a lovely example of a vintage port that's, again, at a more affordable price point. They can be quite expensive, but this is a very approachable one to enjoy now. Now, if you thought port was all about deep, inky red wines, then think again, because there is something called white port, and it is absolutely delicious. Now, there is one producer that is the absolute best at white port, and that is Kopke. They also make outstanding tawnies too, but their whites are really very special indeed. They have a brilliant winemaker who is carrying on this tradition that dates back hundreds of years. They were founded in the 1600s, so it's really quite a mantle of responsibility that he's carrying, but he's doing it brilliantly. And I cannot wait to taste this wine. So, as I said, it's a white port, so it's made from white grapes, but it spent a lot of time in barrel, so it's got this lovely honey ambered colour to it. And it's smelling delicious. It's got this candid note of lovely lemon peel, a little bit nutty, but definitely that kind of sweet citrus coming through, and it smells great. That's lovely. It has that very nice candied orange peel, a really nice nuttiness to it. There's also a nice dried fruits, thinking of things like dried apricots, and a very subtle aroma of toffee. It's warming, but it's fresh. It's not like big and powerful and cloying. It's a really delicate wine as well. And again, it would last for a long time open in the fridge. It's something to enjoy all year round. And I just love this wine. So either go and look one out for yourself or see if Father Christmas could treat you to something a little bit special this year. I really hope you've enjoyed this little tasting of port today and that it's inspired you to go and look out for a really delicious port. There is such a range of styles that there really is something to suit each and every one of us. And remember, port isn't just for Christmas, but it's a really good time to start experimenting. So cheers.